Harrison Kother from the channel The Truth Hurts is a former Jehovah's Witness who left his faith. In this video, which has more than 1.2 million views as of this recording, he tells us what broke his faith. It was Noah's flood. He had been taught that it was a literal account. Then he dug a little bit and recognized that there was no global flood. And if the flood was not true, were Jesus' miracles true? But what really was the last straw for him was when he brought his evidence to his elders and his family. And that's what I want to focus on here. You see, his mentors responded in a way that I've seen some Christians respond, and I think it is problematic, and in some cases even spiritually abusive. I've been on the receiving end of this tactic myself quite a few times. Let's roll some footage.
The more questions you ask regarding this story's historicity, the more you receive the resounding answer, it's not true. Organisations like Jehovah's Witnesses are fully aware of this fact. They know just how minimal and how desperate any evidence is in support of this story being possible, let alone true. They know that if one of their members attempts to isolate and examine this story's historicity, it could lead to their entire tower of faith crumbling to the floor and them leaving the organisation. And so what do? Well, they have one final trick stored up their sleeve just for this occasion.
So what do some Christians do to keep you from asking questions and to keep you from dissenting from the literal interpretation? You may have guessed it, they accuse you of calling Jesus a liar.
Jesus, Paul and Peter accepted the flood as historical and used it as a warning. Jesus Christ plainly stated, Noah entered into the ark and the flood arrived. This is the best evidence possible. Jesus was in heaven before he came to earth. He watched the building of the ark. He saw the flood. When considered from that standpoint, the evidence that Noah's ark existed is already overwhelming. Or as my dad put it, are you calling Jesus Christ a liar? To an indoctrinated mind, this diversion method works to absolute perfection. Just like a magician who diverts the audience's attention from what's really going on, they attempt to divert the attention away from Noah's Ark and proving whether it's true or not, to Jesus Christ, a being who gave up his exalted position in heaven and suffered a truly agonizing death so that they could receive everlasting life. They are reminding you that if you question the flood story, you are inadvertently questioning Jesus Christ himself. How dare you?
Well, this is bullying, plain and simple, and it needs to stop. It's abusive to begin with, and it doesn't work. At best, the victim here will shove their questions and doubts down deep, where they will fester, rather than deal with them openly and resolve them. But at worst, this tactic really backfires. You see, no one likes being bullied, and often people will respond by saying, well, okay, if Jesus taught this, then he wasn't God, and I'm done with Christianity. What does Harrison do?
Unfortunately for the organisation, this line of reasoning produced the exact opposite reaction within me. I had spent 25 years of my life going door to door preaching and teaching that this book isn't just the inspired word of God, but the infallible word of God. When it touches on science or history, it is always 100% accurate, guaranteed. And yet, as one of the foundation pieces of this book, there is quite a fallacious story, an obvious mythological adaptation. The fact that the rest of the Bible, including apparently the words of Jesus Christ himself, refer to this story as being true, simply disproves my claim that it is inspired and infallible. In other words, my whole tower of faith did this.
Perhaps if Harrison had been taught that the Bible is not a science textbook, perhaps if he had been taught that the genre of early Genesis is not historical narrative, but something akin to ancient mythology, perhaps if he had been taught to think more broadly and with more sophistication about how the New Testament interacts with early Genesis, then perhaps he wouldn't have left his church. Let's make sure our own young adults don't follow the same path.